What's going on, gang? It's Gothalion, and I'm here to review Borderlands 2 on the PlayStation Vita. Now, unfortunately, I do not have a PS Vita with a capture card in it, so I was not able to do a full-on, this is exactly the game as it stands review. But what I was able to do is go into my PC INI files and turn down all the settings on PC to get what is visually nearly identical to what you get on the PlayStation Vita. Now, this might not look great blown up on a full 1080p monitor, but it looks damn near decent on a PlayStation Vita. I'm not being unfair. In fact, what I am showing you here might actually look a little better than what the PlayStation Vita version does. But we're not here to beat up on the Vita version. We're here to talk about it. We're going to cover a few points. We're going to find out the answers to a few questions that a lot of people are asking. Is it worth buying? Is it worth buying a Vita for? And who is this game for specifically? How does it stack up? So let's start off with the bad. I figured we're gonna go in, let's talk about the bad first. So if you wanna just skip over that, I would hit towards the half point of this video if you just wanna hear all the glowing, happy unicorns and rainbow shit about Borderlands 2 on the PlayStation Vita. You guys still here? Okay, let's get into it. Borderlands 2 on the PlayStation Vita is muddy. Textures are muddy. There's no dynamic shadows. Aliasing is everywhere. But we knew that was going to be the case. Borderlands on the Vita it's not bad. It doesn't look terrible. In fact, it's one of the best looking games on PlayStation Vita. And in my mind, it's actually technically impressive that they were able to get the amount of game and graphics that they did get onto the Vita, considering the hardware that it has inside it. It runs around 30 frames per second with a lot of slowdown in busy areas, especially towards mid to end game. I only made it to about Eridium Blight before I started to sit down and write this review. And when I say write, I mean think of points and just do it off the cuff. Because I want to tell you guys how I feel. I feel like if I sat down and wrote an actual review on this, then I wouldn't be giving you honest to God opinions on it. And that's what you're here for. I mean, why else would you be watching? So visually, it's the worst looking version of Borderlands 2, but that was expected. It runs fine. There's not many points where it feels unplayable, and it usually hangs out near 30 frames per second. My biggest complaint is the FOV, which seems below the FOV on consoles. It might be the small screen, but that's just how it feels to me. It feels like it's around a 65 FOV, which is about 5 under what consoles run at because they usually do it 70 FOV. PC gamers will understand this, console gamers and handheld gamers will think it's irrelevant. Enough about graphics. We knew it was going to be muddy. Let's talk about the other bad point, and that is controls. Are they unusable? No. At first, it looked like things were going to have to be mapped to the rear and front touch panel, but thankfully, they've made pretty much every control remappable. With a little work, you could get used to these new controls. If you are a keyboard and mouse player, this will be a little frustrating. If you are used to playing with a gamepad, it takes about an hour to an hour and a half of adjustment to get used to the new control scheme, especially if you've poured about 1,000 hours into Borderlands 2 on the Vita. Or 1,000 hours in the Borderlands 2 in general. After about an hour and a half, like I said, you get pretty much used to it. It's not a bad deal. I'm not a big fan of the sticks on the PlayStation Vita. They're kind of small for me. My thumbs are big, and I feel like my thumbs slip off occasionally. There are peripherals you could get, like grips and thumb caps. I have the thumb caps and the grips for my Vita, and it all works out well. So that's the bad. Controls and visuals are really the only bad about Borderlands 2 on the Vita. The only real glaringly bad parts about it. Though the visuals are excusable, it still looks fine, and the controls are something you can overcome with a little time. Let's talk about enemy count. That is the last bad point. Enemy count is about 50% to 75%, depending on the area and depending on how graphically demanding the area you are in is. So say you're in an area that's very graphically demanding, you will probably see a lower enemy count just so you don't get a lot of slowdown. This was for technical reasons. It doesn't feel like EXP scaling has been changed, so the game at times can feel a little bit grindy. But if you've ever played through Borderlands 2 on PlayStation, Xbox, or PC, you'll know that if you spend a lot of time doing side quests and whatnot, then you really won't run into a point where you're under-leveled. So as long as you are keeping up with all the side quests and pretty much doing everything, you won't need to sit and grind enemies. You don't have to do that. It's not as bad as I thought it would be, and honestly, the enemy counts, it's not so detracted from the gameplay. In fact, I feel if the enemy counts were exactly where they are on Xbox and PS3 and PC, then the game would actually be deterred by this due to the lower graphical fidelity and the lower FOV. It might make combat a little frustrating if there was traditional 100% enemy counts. So this ends up being a hidden plus for it. This balancing act helps for combat and makes it really not all that frustrating. So that's it. That's the bad, guys. Let's talk about the good. This is Borderlands on the go. It's Borderlands on the go, and there's been a lot of reviews out there where it's basically saying, well, it's Borderlands on the PlayStation Vita. And I'm here to tell you, well, it's Borderlands on the PlayStation Vita. If you haven't poured 1,000 hours into Borderlands 2, be prepared to pour 1,000 hours into Borderlands 2. If you're comfortable with the controls, be prepared to pour 1,000 hours into Borderlands 2. This is, without a doubt, the deepest game on the PlayStation Vita. This is, without a doubt, one of the deepest games you're going to get on a portable. Period. All the loot is there. All the character growth is there. The combat is still fun. It's still fun. That's what I'm going to get at here. That is the main point about this review. Yes, there are things in the PlayStation Vita version that are kind of kind of muddy, kind of not exactly what you want from the console version, but when you come to a handheld, it's just fine. So, let's wrap this all up. Let's wrap this all up. What else are you guys looking for? We wanted PlayStation Vita to have a Borderlands 2 that was acceptable. This is acceptable. It's absolutely acceptable. So, should you buy Borderlands 2 on the Vita if you already own a Vita? Yes. Absolutely. If you already own a PlayStation Vita, get the game. Just get the damn game. Absolutely get the game. Get it. If you don't own a PlayStation Vita, is Borderlands 2 on the PlayStation Vita worth buying the system for? In my opinion, yes and no. If you are an absolute Borderlands junkie, get it. The hardware is pretty cheap. It's like 200 bucks for a new PlayStation Vita. It comes with Borderlands 2. Get it. But, well, if you're coming from the PlayStation 3 version especially, because they're going to get the cross-save working, which wasn't working at launch, which was pretty weird. If you're coming from the PlayStation 3 version, absolutely, it's worth buying, because you'll be able to transfer your saves. If you're not a Borderlands junkie, if you're not the kind of person who has spent thousands of hours looting and shooting and collecting loot, I wouldn't really say this is worth a buy of the system. I wouldn't. I absolutely would not. But if you are a hardcore Borderlands fan, then I would say this is worth a purchase of a PlayStation Vita. And if you own a Vita, there's no reason you shouldn't get this game. You're not going to sit down and have a deplorable bad time with the game. Outside of kind of muddy visuals and controls that take a little bit of time to get used to, this is a great port of Borderlands 2. And as it stands, it is the only natively running port of Borderlands 2 on a handheld. Gentlemen with a capable computer, get an NVIDIA Shield. Just do that. Do that instead of getting this version. If you have a capable PC, get a Shield. The latest software lets you stream like way over what you could before. I've now, at this point of this video, streamed up to 150 miles from my house, 60 frames per second, 720p, physics, everything on high. It looks great. We're not here to talk about that, though. I'm just saying, if you own a great PC, I wouldn't get this version. I would buy a Shield for streaming. If you have an AMD card, maybe. If you're a hardcore Borderlands fan, and you're running AMD, just get the Vita version if you really need Borderlands on the go. So I'm not going to give this a numbered score. I wanted to address it in such a way where I say, should you buy this? And if you own a Vita, buy it. If you don't own a Vita and you're a hardcore Borderlands fan, get a Vita and buy it. It's a good experience. I know I was tough on it, and that's how I'm always going to be. I'm going to be extremely critical of games. I'm not going to sugarcoat it just because I love a product. But I can't go away from this video telling you that it's not still Borderlands. It's not still fun. It's not still moment-to-moment great. And I can't say that it's not impressive that it's running on the system, because it is impressive that this kind of AAA experience is on the PlayStation Vita. And you know how critical I am of everything. Anyways, guys, don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys back in the Borderlands.